Today I'm going to share a little bit about tight hip flexors versus weak hip flexors. Oftentimes when we sit for long periods of time and we go to stand up, we feel like we have to unwind just to be able to start walking. Oftentimes it's because they're tight. You have tight hip flexors. You may also experience a little bit of pain in your lower back. Sometimes, however, those hip flexors may be weak, not tight. And it's important that we know the difference because sometimes they exhibit the same symptoms. But tight hip flexors are tight. Those muscles are contracted, so they're tight together. They need to be lengthened, stretched out. Weak hip flexors, on the other hand, could probably benefit from strengthening. So rather than stretching already weak hip flexors, you want to strengthen those. And I'd like to share with you a couple of tests, one for tight hip flexors, one for weak hip flexors, so that you will know the difference. The first one will be for the tight hip flexors, and the second one I'll demonstrate how to test for weak hip flexors. This first test is to see if your hip flexors may be tight. So what you'll need is a table or other platform and one where your feet do not touch the floor. A bed is too soft, and oftentimes when you're sitting on your bed, your feet do touch the floor, so that is probably not the best thing to use for this test. So sitting on the edge of the table, go ahead and lay down on your back. Draw both knees into the chest. From here, extend one leg out long while holding onto the other knee. Generally, if you have tight hip flexors, the hamstring or the back of the thigh will probably be raised up from the table surface. I'm going to slide back just a little bit. And I do notice that there's a space here, so in looking at myself, I'm pretty sure my hip flexors are tight. And now I am going to draw my right knee in closer to my chest. And I notice where my leg raises up even more, demonstrating that I need to stretch my tight hip flexors. You'll want to make sure you do both sides. This is a test to see if your hip flexors are possibly weak. So for this one, all you'll need is a chair. So coming up relatively close to the chair, you're going to place one foot in the chair. Make sure the thigh is as close to parallel to the floor as you can get it. So in other words, you don't want the chair to be too low, and you don't want it to be too high. And with this test, you'll be lifting the foot up, or the leg. Hold for a few seconds, and place it back down. You may want to try it twice. So lift up, hold, and down. If you find that you cannot clear the chair, or you have difficulty lifting that foot up off of the chair, you probably have weak hip flexors and they'll need to be strengthened. And again, on this test, make sure you do both sides. For tight hip flexors, this is a stretch that I like to do. And I've chosen this one, and there are many, but I've chosen this one because you can easily do this pretty much anywhere. I didn't want to do a kneeling one because some people have difficulty kneeling on their knees because of joint pain. But this one you can do at home or in your office at work. So we're going to assume what looks a little bit like a high lunge position. So step one leg forward, adjust the other leg back. You're going to be on the toes of that back leg. Contract the quad muscles of the front leg. Contract the glutes. So it's almost as though you're pulling one leg back, the front leg back, and pulling the hips forward. You should feel a good stretch here, right in your hip hip flexor area. So you're not leaning forward. You're definitely not leaning back. So tightening the glutes will really help you get into the hip flexor stretch. And from here, you can raise that same side hand up overhead. You're going to lean a little bit to the opposite side while at the same time extending or pressing the hips a little bit at a diagonal. So in this instance, I'm leaning to my left and I am pressing my hips slightly to my right. This really helps me to get not only here, but also a little bit laterally or to the side. And again, you will want to do both sides. This exercise is to strengthen your hip flexors if they are weak. So we're going to use the same exercise that we did to test for weak hip flexors. So again, you'll need a chair. So stepping up close, you're going to place one foot in the chair. And we're just going to lift that foot up, hold briefly, and replace it back with control. So standing up nice and tall, lengthening through the spine. Going to lift up, hold, down, up, hold, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. I think I've lost count, but I'm going to do 3 more. All right. I did not have or did not use any weights with this. You can, as you get stronger with this, you can add ankle weights if you have them. You can also use a cable machine once the gyms reopen. I hope you found these useful. Try them. Come back later, test to see if you made an improvement. Thanks again for joining me.